Wow, the V-Line bus stop, or bus, 3 years later, how it's impacted DY and all the other Northern Beaches suburbs. We're talking about it on set today.
Today, the B-Line.
B-Line, let's go. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is actually Mark and I's first time actually being in the same room while doing the morning minutes.
Normally we've got the dual screen.
I know, so it's really weird because I'm very inclined to turn around and talk to you this way, but I have to look at the screen.
I think you can though. You know when
I feel like we're news hosts, it's like Sunrise or something.
Where's that
anchors? I know. We need a mic. Yeah. I've got my water bottle. But yeah, today we're talking about the B-Line.
The B-Line bus is is this thing behind us. Yeah. Great name. And the massive change that made to our community, and it was an infrastructure upgrade, and it was a pain in the ass. Anyone who wanted it, there was people in communities of the Northern Beaches that didn't want it.
No.
That bitched and moaned and complained, outright refused it and didn't get it.
Yeah, well, we even saw that. So for anyone who doesn't know what the B-Line is, I'm sure you've seen these big yellow buses around the city, but they're buses that go straight from Wynyard to Mona Vale, stopping at major stops. So Mossman, Neutral Bay, Warringah Mall, Manly Vale, DY, etc., all the way to Mona Vale. But when they first rolled out, they were meant to go all the way to Newport, and it was really upsetting because there was lots of community complaint, and it actually ended up being stopped at Mona Vale instead of going all the way to Newport, which now, my personal opinion, I think was a big mistake because the B-Line has made such a huge impact, even in DY alone, as we were sort of talking about before, in terms of bringing people in from the city. In the mornings, I'm sure you see everyone lined up at the B-Line bus stops waiting to go into the city.
And they're double-deckers.
Yeah, they're double-deck, which is I remember the first time I caught it, I sat right at the front, at the top here, and it was so exciting because it's I don't think I'd ever been on a double-decker bus before.
Yeah, and everyone loves a double-decker bus.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a London thing or you've seen in movies or whatever, but it's pretty cool. Now, Pat, what was the difference, the fundamental differences? Isn't a bus a bus a bus a bus?
Well,
what happened here? Why is this different to our conventional bus transport system that we already had installed?
Well, because I think a big thing about it was it was express. So you're not... I used to live in Beacon Hill, and anyone who knows the 136, it's the bus that goes from Beacon Hill to Manly. It stops at every single stop from Beacon Hill to DY, through Narraweena, Kel, Freshwater. It takes an hour just to get to Manly. So a bus like this coming every, I think, 10 minutes during peak, it just made such a huge impact. I caught this every day to uni, and it was quicker than any other thing like the ferry and I think just having that option there, and just because it's this is my marketing side coming out, but the fact it's bright yellow, you know what it is.
There's a bit of marketing there. I never thought of that. It's top of mind.
Yeah, well, even
I'll get the bus.
Yeah, and even on the bus, there's a little map that shows you what stop you're at, where it stops, and it tells you I'm sure you've heard the annoying Siri voice on the bus, but it says, get off at this stop for buses to the Northern Beaches Hospital.
Yep.
Or
so to help you get further buses with information.
Or DY Beach. It even tells you what's at DY. But I think when we're coming back to DY, which I think we're sort of focusing on today with the B-Line and the impact that's had, I think the B-Line's one of many factors that's improved DY over the years.
Infrastructure.
But
that's actually interesting. This probably may sound a bit nerdy, but I actually went to a lot of the workshops when they were workshopping the B-Line bus, where to stop, how to stop. Now, they did have an excellent bus system which ran pretty much from Palm Beach into the city. They were blue buses. Some of them were bendy buses, the long ones. Some of them were express.
The L90.
The L90. The big thing with the Beeline bus, and it was a $300 million upgrade for our infrastructure. I think a bit short of that was about half of that was to buy the actual buses. But what they actually had to do, which is really interesting, and how in depth this study was, because we used to go to the public consultation workshops with the guys from all the different transport areas. They actually they timed what people didn't realize was we have a 3-lane highway which goes into the city, and the three lane highway was reduced to 1 lane in peak periods, sometimes 30% of the time. And it's like, what do you mean? Like it's actually a clear way. How can it be reduced? Or so what was, or we couldn't really work it out. But they got this timing so down pat on this Beeline bus, it was bloody incredible. They'd worked out that if they allowed obviously a clear way in some areas, because it wasn't clear way all the way through. They were saying if they allowed clear way there, if they didn't allow a clear way and they allowed parking, what happens is every time someone pulls into the second lane to park into the first lane, they then choke up. Lane 1's choked, lane 2's choked, and then it leaves it to lane 3 only to work during peak hour traffic. So they really looked at stimulating, and then they looked at these bypass lanes and to create a 4th or 5th lane off a highway to pull buses off. Because what would happen was buses would start to queue behind each other, and sometimes they were queuing behind each other into the second lane, again reduced to 1 lane. So they looked at that and they said, the amount of time we can save, and it was coming down to everything they were doing was milliseconds, was seconds, and they had to buy in some circumstances. When Meriton DY was, they did acquisition of land. So to
see if they needed to add another lane,
and they did more than they need. So if you look at like Meriton, that actually widens out where it was 6 lanes. It almost widens out to 8 or 9 lanes now.
Well, there's the double bus lane in DY, at the Beeline bus stop. But I think that's a really good point. Even if we're looking at the environmental impact of the Beeline, so many people switch from getting this bus than driving into the city. And I think it's after COVID, especially, I think the impact of the Beeline has really been evident, because a lot of people now are working from home. They don't want to drive into work every day. I think just having that option, I'll just get the bus in today, I'll come back and do the rest from home. I think it's just been a big part of what I've
it came out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere, and I think it's really made an impact on the beaches, which you got to remember does not have any train lines. So if we're talking about the city and the inner west and anywhere in the city, Northern Beaches has been known for just having pretty terrible public transport, I think, in the past. Buses are really our only big form. There's ferries from Manly, but besides that, we're really dependent on buses. And just even having this one bus that the yellow one will get me into the city, instead of being so you get the L90, but if you get the 136, you can get off at DY and then get the 199, which will take you
just making it simple.
This is the one.
With that $300 million that they spend, this gives you an idea what's happening behind the scenes. There were people that lost their houses, stroke, commercial buildings. In the area. So what they actually did was when they were doing the compulsory acquisition, which is when the government turns around and knocks on your door and says, sorry, but we need your property because there was unit blocks in Neutral Bay, Mossman, that they purchased, and then they knocked them down, the buildings, or they chopped the land off so they could get those lanes in Manly Vale. The big thing was park and ride. So trying to get people. Do you want to explain that?
So park and ride. I'm actually using this next week because I have to go into the city, and I was trying to plan it out. I'm like, I'll just park in Manly Vale, but it's a parking lot that pretty much you can get in it by tapping your Opal card, and once you're in there, the Opal card registers. It reads when you're on the Beeline, and pretty much it's free if you tap on a Beeline using your Opal card. So when you go to leave the parking lot, let's say you have a big night out, and the next day you're like, I have to pick up my car. It's at the Beeline bus stop. It's free parking because they know that you've used the Beeline. But you can still use the car park if you don't catch the B line, but you do have to pay for it. So it's a really smart option to encourage people to get the bus.
It's incredible.
It's awesome, but they do go really quick.
And then tying this back to real estate. And what that infrastructure has meant. So it was a moment where all of us were like, oh, okay, yeah, this will be good. Yeah, this will be great. Who cares? Don't really use the bus anyway. To it actually improved the suburb. It improved livability. It improved rental rates for landlords. It made suburbs more sought after because it sort of killed off some suburbs that didn't get it.
It did. Well, we were sort of talking about Newport and even
Freshwater.
Freshwater,
yeah,
that's really hard to get to by public transport. But DY, I think, has been the one that's really, like, I think of it as the main Beeline bus stop because you get off the Meriton shopping, like the retail precinct is right there when you get off.
Yeah.
So I think, and look, we've got some comments coming in.
And they brought from Jess.
So for people who don't know, this is my sister. Also.
Inner West is the best. Come on.
And then what's this one? Oh yes, so this is I forgot the name of Hoppin. So it's more in I think Mona Vale. They have this bus. It's like an Uber app that it's like a big van and it drops you off to the Beeline bus stops.
Government van or private?
Government, I'm pretty sure.
So that's pretty clever because they're trying to promote. They're just trying to make it easier to get onto the bus, and they're providing. Because I think the big thing with the Beeline bus on the Northern Beaches is. It's great once you're on it, but actually, if you're in parts of like, if you're not on that main line, and you don't want to park or you can't park or it costs to park, how do you get to that bus? And that's a facility that does that the government's doing. Yeah,
so that one was particularly good in like Mona Vale, where it's a bit trickier to get to the bus stop. There's lots of like big houses on tops of hills and stuff.
Yeah, so you can jump on there. Now the rental rates have changed. We have noticed that there's been an upward pressure on rents even before the market cycles of what's been happening with interest rates.
Yeah.
And we've noticed that, and we now with the Beeline, a property in DUI rents for more than a property in Freshwater, a property in DUI rents for more than a property in Collaroy, a property in DUI purely off that Beeline bus. I think it's just given that whole infrastructure, Meriton, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What else we got to talk about?
That's pretty much it.
Pushed up the value. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good. So that's the infrastructure upgrade for the Beeline bus. Huge thing. Well done to the New South Wales government for doing that. Massive, massive, massive. And that's just been it's $300 million, but I think to the bottom line of the community, it's taken a 1 hour trip in a bus down to 37 minutes, which is a whopper. So, guys, if Lisa's here as well, all right, she said Freshie has a direct bus to the CBD. Absolutely. And ferry services are insane too. So the great thing here is in Northern Beaches, you can also get a ferry into the city. So you can, yes, go from DY, yes, going to Manly, and yes, get a ferry as well. So guys, when you're considering buying a suburb, consider getting into the, where'd you go?
I just went to go catch the Beeline.
So when you're considering buying into a suburb anywhere in Sydney or even Australia, the infrastructure that you're getting with that is you probably don't value it as much because it's sort of more for the masses. I'm not going to use it, but it really does sort of prop up all your pricing and handiness, convenience, walk score.
Yeah, walkability scores. That's a big thing. So if you go on walkscore.com, I think it is, you can look up the walkability score of your suburb, which actually improves how much profit you can make on your property. So it's about access to public transport, how shops, proximity to, I think, hospitals and schools, things like that. I think Haymarket is actually the number one for Australia. I think Manly is around 14. Oh, not Australia, New South Wales, sorry, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but look up your walk score for your suburb, and I'm sure next time you look on realestate.com for properties on the northern beaches, I'm sure you'll find a thing saying next to a Beeline bus stop or 5 minutes from a Beeline bus stop specifically, because it's a thing that people are putting on their real estate listings now, that how close it is to a Beeline.
So you Google walk score.
Yeah, walk score.
And then in there you can type your address and it gives you all the boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Sick. All right. Thank you, legend. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye, bye, bye.